Good evening, and welcome to tonight's Zoning Board of Appeals meeting. Let me introduce some members of town government that assist this board. To my left is Martin Simon, Assistant Town Attorney. To his left is Blaise Donadio, a planner in the Planning Department. You're all here tonight seeking relief from the Smithtown zoning ordinances, and it's our job to try to help you achieve the relief you are requesting whenever possible. It's up to you to provide this board with precise and accurate information so we, excuse me, so we as a board can make a decision based on the facts presented. This board must consider the 5 area variance considerations in order to render a decision, and they are as follows. They're also listed up here for you. Number 1, whether an undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood or a detriment to nearby properties will be created by the granting of the variance. Number 2, whether the benefit sought by the applicant can be achieved by some means feasible for the applicant to pursue other than the area variance. Number 3, whether the variance is substantial. Number 4, whether the proposed variance will have an adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood. And number 5, whether the alleged difficulty was self-created. Procedures for tonight's meeting. Cases will be called in the order they are advertised. When you are called, please present your certificates of mailings and posting to Mr. Donadio if you haven't done so already. Then you'll be asked to go to the podium, where you'll state your name and address for the record and then proceed to tell us why you need your variance. At the end of your presentation, if anyone in the audience would like to speak on your case, they will be given one opportunity to do so. Then the applicant can come back to the podium to answer their concerns. Once the public hearing is closed, no further information will be accepted concerning the case. There are 2 ways to find out about your case. You can call the Planning Department tomorrow after 12 p.m., or you can wait and be notified by mail. We do have 2 adjournments tonight. The first adjournment is case number 19094, Russell Arnold. That has been adjourned to April 23rd. And the second case is case 19061, Mary Sue Namus. That has been adjourned to April 23rd also.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The first case on the agenda, case number 19092, Jason Driggs, 4 Linda Lane, Comac. The location of the property is the west side of Linda Lane, 115 feet north of Dolly Drive. The property is zoned R10. The applicant is requesting variances to reduce the minimum side yard setback from 12 feet to 10 feet, to reduce the total side yards from 28 feet to 24 feet, for an existing 733 square foot rear deck and existing 139 square foot pergola.
Good evening.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Jason Driggs. I reside at 4 Linda Lane, Comac, New York, 11725.
You can lift that up.
Okay,
Or you can take it out if it's easier.
that's okay. As discussed or as mentioned, we have an existing deck and pergola that were constructed prior to our purchase of the home in 2019. We filed for a permit for the deck, which was not filed under the previous owner. Upon filing for that application, we were advised that the deck encroaches 2 feet into the side yard, which is permitted. I believe permissible side yard was 12 feet, and our deck was 10 feet from the adjacent property line. So we are respectfully requesting a variance to reduce the total side yard, and I believe the adjacent side yard.
Okay. It appears that the deck is just 10 feet in one corner.
Yeah, it kind of
Right.
slopes with the property. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Does anyone on the board have any questions on this application?
No, thank you.
No, thank you.
Planning?
No, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone in the audience like to be heard on this application? Can I have a motion to close the application, please?
So moved.
Second.
Motion has been made to close the application. It's been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
good hair day, Morton.
You too.
The next case on the agenda is case number 19093, James and Melissa Borgia, 29 Del Marie Lane, Nesconset. The location of the property is the east side of Del Marie Lane, 81 feet south of Bond Lane. The property is zoned R10. The applicant is requesting a variance to reduce the minimum rear yard setback from 50 feet to 42 feet for a proposed 338 square foot rear screened porch addition with a gas fireplace.
Good evening.
Good evening. My name is James Borgia. My wife Melissa's sitting over there. We reside at 29 Del Marie Lane, Nesconset, and I'm giving my architect permission to speak.
Okay, fine. Thank you. Good evening. Could you state your name, spell
Sure,
your
it's-
last name so we get it correct on the record, and your address, please?
Tredger, Tredger. Good evening, Chairperson Benz and the fellow board members. I'm the architect for the premises, and I'm here to represent Mr. and Mrs. Borgia, who resides at, like they said, 29 Del Marie Lane, Nesconset. We're here before you this evening to present a proposed one-story, 338-square-foot screened-in porch addition on the rear of the existing one-and-a-half-story single-family residence. We're here tonight seeking a variance approval for a reduction of the rear yard setback, requesting 42 feet where 50 feet is required in the R10 zone, which is a 16% relaxation. The proposed addition design blends into the aesthetics of the existing house using similar materials and would fit within the nature of the character of the neighborhood. The proposed one-story is in the center of the rear wall with the roof height well below the existing roof, which makes it barely visible from the street. That pretty much concludes my information, and if I have any board members like to have any questions, please feel free.
The gas fireplace, that's vented to the outside, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Anyone on the board have any questions on this application?
No, thank you.
No, thank you.
Planning?
No, thank you.
Thank you.
Nothing.
Thank you.
Is there anyone in the audience like to be heard on this application? Can I have a motion to close the application, please?
So moved.
Second?
Motion has been made to close the application. It's been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you.
The next case on the agenda, case number 19095, Chick-fil-A, Inc., 530 Smithtown Bypass, Smithtown. The location of the property is the north side of Smithtown Bypass, Route 111, 150 feet east of State Route New York 347. The property is zoned SCB. The applicant is requesting variances to reduce the minimum front yard setback from 50 feet to 12 feet on Route 111, to reduce the minimum front yard setback from 50 feet to 43 feet on Route 347, to increase the maximum height of an accessory structure from 0 feet to 11 feet for proposed 1,437 square foot canopy over existing drive-through order boards, to reduce the distance of drive-in windows, order boards, and menus from a residential district from 75 feet to 22 feet for proposed relocation of existing menu and order boards.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Denise Vista with Amato Law Group, 666 Old Country Road, Garden City, New York, 11530. Yes, V as in Victor, I-S-T-A. I am here tonight on behalf of the applicant, Chick-fil-A, Inc., and the property owner, 111 Associates, LLC, in connection with its variance applications to construct the following improvements at the existing Chick-fil-A restaurant located at 530 Smithtown Bypass in Smithtown. A freestanding canopy to be situated over the relocated drive-through menu boards, and install a canopy over the existing drive-through pickup window. As Mr. Donadio had gone through the variances, I will keep it brief, but we are seeking 5 variances. 2 front yard setbacks, one along Route 111. 12.8 feet is provided, whereas 50 is required. 1 to Route 347, where 50 feet is required, and we're providing 43.9 feet. We also require a height variance for the order point canopy, which will be 10 feet, 4 inches tall, whereas 0 feet is permitted. A front yard setback variance for both the canopies because they'll be located within the required front yards. And a setback variance for the existing menu boards, which will be relocated, and there'll be a distance of 22 feet to the nearest residential zoning district. The property contains frontages along both Route 347 and Route 111, as you know. It's heavily traveled commercial thoroughfares and developed with commercial and residential uses in the area. And the property is approximately 1.4 acres. It is zoned SCB. And as discussed, it is improved with the existing Chick-fil-A. We received approvals from the town for the existing restaurant, including special exception and area variance relief from this board on March 22nd, 2017, as well as site plan building permits. And this store opened March 4th, 2021. So as mentioned, we're proposing 2 canopies, and I will have Dan Pedersen with Bowler Engineering go through the details of those 2 canopies.
Good evening.
Good evening, Chairman, members of the board. Dan Pedersen, Bowler Engineering, 275 Broad Hollow Road, Melville, New York. Yes, P-E-D-E-R-S-E-N. So the site modifications here are actually fairly minimal. As Denise mentioned, Chick-fil-A is proposing freestanding canopy in the drive-through lane along Route 111. The canopy will be located 12.8 feet from the front property line on Route 111, and the encroachment is simply just a function of the location of the existing drive-through lanes. Those drive-through lanes are currently set back 10 feet from the property line on Route 111. The canopy is approximately 55 feet long, 26 feet wide, with 9'6" clear to the underside of the canopy, with an overall height of 10 feet 4 inches. This results in a canopy thickness of only 10 inches, so it's a fairly low profile design when you're looking at it. It's not similar to a bank canopy at a drive-through or to a gas station canopy, where when you're looking at them, you see like a roof structure, you see a large facade facing you. This is a minimal design. The total canopy area is approximately 1,437 square feet. The purpose of the canopy is to provide shade protection for the employees as they're taking orders upstream in the drive-through. The canopy will also include fans and also heaters to protect and keep the employees warm, the Chick-fil-A team members warm and cool during the summer months. The width of the canopy is really just a function of the drive-through lane width. The drive-through lane width is 24 feet. It's a double drive-through, and the canopy width is 26 feet, so it overhangs a little bit. And the length is designed to accommodate approximately 2.5 vehicles underneath each lane, where the Chick-fil-A team members, as I mentioned, will be taking upstream orders via iPads and relaying that back to the kitchen. The operation of upstream ordering, which I think Chick-fil-A was at the forefront of, and many other fast food restaurants are kind of imitating them, it increases the drive-through efficiency. And it's really been determined that this number, that 2.5 cars, is the optimal number to really sync up the order taking, where you're placing your order, with the kitchen preparing it, with the meal delivery. So that canopy size and the number of employees that are underneath the canopy taking orders is really optimized at that 2.5 vehicles. This design will also relocate the menu boards, assuming that we are granted the variance tonight. The menu boards will be relocated under the canopy and incorporated into the design of the canopy for a clean look. Additionally, Chick-fil-A is proposing a canopy over the meal delivery or pickup window, which faces Route 347. I'd like to point out that there's already an existing awning over that window, which that awning is set back 45.9 feet from the front property line. Our new canopy is going to extend 2 feet further, so we're going to encroach to 43.9 feet. So it's a really minimal encroachment over what's there today and what was previously approved. That canopy will extend the drive-through lane, up the drive-through lane to the southwest corner of the building, with the intent being similar to the menu board canopy. As team members, we'll be able to hand-deliver food to customers upstream in the drive-through lane using the existing drive-through door, which also increases the drive-through operations and efficiency. The clearance of this canopy is 9 foot 8 inches with an overall height of 10 foot 6, so it's that same low-profile design. I mean, you can imagine it's no bigger than this piece of paper when you're looking at the facade of it, so it's really minimal in design. Other than those 2 canopy additions and the replacement of some concrete curbing, concrete pavement, and striping associated with the installation of the canopies, there will be no other site modifications.
Just for clarification.
Yes.
No menu boards are going to be added, they're just going to be relocated.
If, assuming that we can get the square footage of the canopy approved tonight, there will be the existing menu boards will be relocated underneath the canopy.
Right, but you're
Yes.
not going to add any more?
No.
No, okay. Just a quick question. We approved something similar to this at the Comac Chick-fil-A?
Correct.
We'll actually talk about that. If you don't have any more questions for him,
I was just, has that been built?
it has.
Oh, okay.
I had a question for you.
Yep.
So I'm looking on the plan. Where are they going from and to on the plan, the menu boards?
The menu boards are currently in front of that canopy, probably like 30 feet in front of the canopy, closer towards the northwest corner of the building.
Northwest corner, meaning?
Yeah,
fur-
right where the 2 lanes merge into one.
So closer to the end of the drive-through,
Yes, yeah.
okay?
And they're going to be
when we say residence district, there aren't residences there, it's just the residential district boundary line?
well, the residential district, or the residences are across
Cross,
Route
right.
111, correct.
But it's the reduction from 75 to 22 feet is from the district boundary line, not from residences, correct?
Correct.
That's correct.
Yeah.
It's actually, I'm sorry, it's actually 22 feet to the property line, and then you have to cross over 111. And the nearest residence, I believe, from there is about, from the proposed canopy, using, Google Earth, it's an approximation, but it's about 160 feet.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Were your questions answered regarding the menu boards? Okay.
I have a question before we.
Sure.
So when you pull in off of 111, you make that right turn to make your way toward the menu boards.
Yes.
The canopy is going to begin in that area so that as people are waiting online to approach the menu board, they'll be covered.
Correct.
Okay, and then it's going to run right up and around the building.
The canopy for where you're placing your order is only going to be along Route 111. It's only 55 feet long along Route 111. There's going to be a separate canopy that kind of just projects the yellow along Nesconset Port Jeff Highway on that one. That is the second canopy. That's a smaller canopy. That's really a meal delivery canopy.
And just refresh my recollection, what's the maximum height of the canopy going to be?
It is 10 feet 4 inches to the top of the canopy.
Okay, thank you.
So, Mr. Chairman, you had some questions about the Comac store, so I just wanted to address that. So, in January 2022, we had appeared before this board requesting area variance relief related to a similar canopy at the Comac store, or the Comac restaurant. And we had sought approval for a 1,400 square foot canopy, similar to what we're seeking today. And the board ultimately approved a 900 square foot canopy. So while Chick-fil-A was appreciative of the variance relief that was granted, to a certain extent, they had concerns that it wasn't going to address Chick-fil-A's needs at the property. After it was constructed, they found out that it did not. And we have Chad Baker here with Chick-fil-A who can address as to why that smaller 900 square foot canopy didn't work and why we need the requested variances for the larger canopy as well as the order pickup window canopy.
Okay. Good evening.
Good evening, Chairman, and I'm here tonight. You can tell I'm from Atlanta, Georgia. I'm not from New York, but I would like to share with you.
Excuse me, before you start, can you just
Sure.
introduce yourself?
Chad Baker with Chick-fil-A Corporate. Address is 5200 Buffington Road, Atlanta, Georgia, 30349.
Thank you.
Sure. I'm sorry? Baker, B-A-K-E-R, yes, yes. So thank you for, letting us be here tonight and make this request. Quite simply, we are in for our entire portfolio nationwide. And that's really in response to two things. One is our service model for face-to-face ordering. So we have learned over the years that if a customer drives on our site and they have a pre-sale board or a menu board, they typically sit there for a long time and look at it. And they read it. Even if they're a loyal customer, they tend to sit there and read it for a long time, even if there's nothing new on the menu. And quite frankly, it limits the efficiency of the operations. We have learned over time that if we put a team member in the drive-through area with a connection, they make an emotional connection, and they also tend to order much quicker, and they're more efficient with how they order. And so that's reason number one. So it's called our face-to-face ordering model. And then reason number two is it's a direct response. Our Canopy program is a direct response to OSHA's initiative to provide water, rest, and shade for outside employees, wherever those employees are, and for whatever kind of business they're working at. So the Canopy is a shade mechanism that allows the team member to seek refuge in inclement weather, especially hot weather, from the sun. It's not intended that the team member be under the canopy necessarily 100% of the time, but most of the time. And we provide that so that they feel cared for, quite frankly. Our mission is to be the world's most caring company. And so we want to make sure that not only our customers feel cared for, but our team members also feel cared for. So at COMAC, we presented, I think, a prototypical canopy that's roughly 55 feet long. We came up with 55 feet years ago when we initially introduced a 48-foot canopy. And we put that 48-foot canopy in place in several locations throughout the country. And we learned from that that it wasn't quite long enough in order to accommodate 2.5 car lengths in each lane. So the ideal situation is to have 6 team members in the drive-through lane, 3 on one side, 3 on the other, and they're servicing 6 cars at one time. Our kitchen is designed and built to be able to accommodate that number of orders at a single simultaneous time. So if we can take 6 full orders simultaneously, we can also fulfill those orders very quickly and get customers out of the drive-through line. That's also part of the reason we're asking for the outside meal delivery canopy at the pickup window. We've learned that if a car comes to the window and sits for any length of time, we can't get another car around them. So it blocks and backs up the whole drive-through. So our outside meal delivery service model allows a team member at the window to be able to hand deliver to another car behind the car at the window their order, and then they can bypass around that car and get out. And that, quite frankly, eliminates a lot of traffic congestion throughout the site. And so most tenants, landlords, and jurisdictions really love that idea because it's allowing traffic, the throughput, to continue to flow. So I say all that to say that at COMAC, we ultimately agreed to a shorter canopy, but having built it, we've learned our lesson again that when the 48-foot canopy was not long enough really to accomplish the goal, and we settled for a shorter canopy at COMAC, we were hopeful that maybe something had changed, but it really hasn't. We really do need our prototypical canopy length of 55 feet roughly in order to make the operations truly efficient. And so, again, that's why we're here tonight. We're hopeful that you will consider our request and allow us to be able to team members appropriately as they're taking those orders. Hopefully that's been enough information to help you to make that decision.
So the 55 feet would encompass staging for 3 cars?
2.5 really, but yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes.
That's what you're looking for?
Correct. Yes, sir.
Okay. Just one more thing. In the event this gets approved,
Yes, sir.
will Comac be coming back in to increase the size of their canopy? Just out of curiosity.
That is not our plan at this time,
Okay. But there's, could be.
potentially.
Yeah.
That is not our plan currently, though.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Did you say that this location is an average size location for your locations on Long Island?
In terms of the square footage of the building, yes.
How many locations do you have on Long Island?
Gosh, I hate that I'm not prepared to answer that question. We have at least 30 locations on Long Island.
And what percentages of those locations have what you're calling the prototypical canopy?
Yeah, so all new stores, we seek the canopy. As long as it gets approved, we build it. So every store in our portfolio, we have the mission of putting a canopy at that location.
What percentage of the stores actually get it? Because you could be seeking it and not getting it.
Yes, sir. That's a fair question. So I would say that 90% of our stores across the country receive a canopy.
And what about on Long Island?
I'm sorry, I don't know that answer.
I'm just curious as to how this is going to fit into the framework. Obviously, our concern is for the immediate area, but I'm also wondering how this location fits into the framework of your other Chick-fil-A locations on Long Island specifically.
Yeah, okay. Okay.
So the only one that did not have one was the Port Jeff Station, and that was recently approved, and that will be constructed. But I could share with you some that I myself have personally obtained recently. There was one in the town of Hempstead, and that was 1,900 square feet. That was in Levittown. The second one was, sorry about that. I'm sorry, the one in Levittown was 1,782 square feet, and the one in East Meadow that we just got approved by the board in December of last year, that was 1,908 square feet. And then there's a few others that I can just give you for size and location. Hicksville at the Broadway Mall, that was 1,400 square feet, and that was installed in 2021. The Port Jeff that I had mentioned was 1,250 square feet. And the Huntington store is 1,200 square feet that opened in 2022.
And those building sizes would be akin to what we're looking at here.
I think, yeah, they vary a little bit, but yes. I mean, like the one in East Meadow, that's a walk-up drive-through only, so that is a smaller store, but hence the reason where we need the larger drive-through.
And how large did you say it is at Huntington?
Huntington is 1,200 square feet. The largest one that we just got approved was 1,908 square feet.
And that's East Meadow.
That was East Meadow in the town of Hempstead.
Thank you.
So Hicksville would be the closest, meaning size-wise, to what you're proposing here?
The 1,400 square feet, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So we can take a look at that one.
Yes.
Thank you.
And, just to kind of touch upon the drive-through, I mean, COVID, which is what now, 4 years, the anniversary, drive-throughs became, of utmost importance to a lot of people. So even more so with Chick-fil-A, it's become the trend. And, as Mr. Baker had mentioned, we want to protect our employees and the patrons alike. So just to note, too, just a couple others in the town. This board did approve a large canopy for the Sonic Drive-In on Middle Country Road in Wisconsin. I know that there was several years of approvals and back and forth with that, and just approximating it, that's about 3,900 square feet and 11 feet tall. That's also a freestanding canopy. And then we do know that Raising Cane's came in, they sought a change of zone approval, did not come before this board, but they too were proposing freestanding canopies, so it was contemplated at that time. But I guess even more telling is that there are 2 large freestanding canopies. One is adjacent to this property, that's the Speedway gas station, and the other one is the Mobile gas station. And those run about 3,100 to 4,100 square feet. They're freestanding. While it may be a gas station and in a different zoning district, I do acknowledge that, they are similar and they are larger. So I do have some photos, unless you're familiar with it, but of the Sonic, the Mobile, and the Speedway that I would like to submit, just to demonstrate that this is not out of character for this neighborhood. They're both in close distance to the residences, and there is not a restriction for gasoline stations, fuel pumps. The menu board, I'm very, is this going in and out, or am I imagining it?
It's going in and out.
Yeah. So I'm sorry, it's kind of throwing me off here. So if that's okay, could I just submit those photos into the record?
If you'd like.
And
Right. Okay.
So those are just to demonstrate that this board has approved, I shouldn't say this board, because I don't know. Let me take that back. I don't know, I have not yet foiled the properties to understand if they have received variance relief. But they are in the NB zoning district, while the Sonic is in the WSI, I believe. So bulk restrictions are different. And the zoning district in which we're in, we're constrained by those, because the 50-foot setback is meant for a shopping center, and it is no longer used for a shopping center. It's, now a restaurant.
Right. I mean, just for the record, the gas stations and Sonic, that was all part of the original plan to have it in. Going forward, is Sonic going to make these part of their plan when they develop a site?
Chick-fil-A.
Chick-fil-A? I'm sorry.
The canopies?
Yeah.
Yes, I mean, it is
It
the.
almost seems like you put the building up first, and then you come
Well,
back.
and then it was rolled out later, yes.
Right. So
So
going
it was-
forward, it'll all be one unit when you present.
There'll be freestanding canopies at the restaurants, yes. That is the plan, provided they're approved. And I will say, just as someone who's presented a lot of these applications for Chick-fil-A, we really haven't had any pushback. The jurisdictions realize that this is part of the restaurant and is required for the employees, similar to a gas station. The reason you have those freestanding canopies patrons and your employees from the elements. So they're used for the same thing. This will just be much smaller than those at the Mobile and the Speedway, which are in the area.
Okay, thank you.
Did you have any further questions for Chick-fil-A or for Bowler? I'm sorry, for Mr. Benderson.
I'll
Sorry.
ask. Does anyone on the board have any questions?
Just one more minor question. What color will the canopy be?
I know we had submitted elevations. You maybe just want to show them the board. It'll be black, which matches the canopies that are out there today.
Planning?
No comments, Mr. Chairman. I just want everybody to be aware that in your packet is the previous approval that Ms. Vista mentioned in her presentation.
Thank you. Sabrina, nothing? You're done with your presentation, right?
I mean, I would like to run through the variance standards just briefly, just to make sure that I get them on the record, unless there's somebody in the audience that would
Okay.
like to speak.
All right, go right ahead.
Okay. So we submit that the variances would not produce a detrimental impact on adjacent properties or the character of the neighborhood, as I had mentioned, because of the existing large canopies at the gas stations adjacent to the property and within 350 feet. Nothing new will be introduced into the view shed because those two canopies exist and they are part of the character of the neighborhood today. The benefit cannot be achieved by an alternative because the canopies must be aligned with the existing drive-through. So in order to put in these canopies to comply with the setbacks, we essentially would have to completely redesign the site, and due to the bulk requirements, we probably wouldn't be able to comply. The requested variances are not substantial because the canopies will be set back from the roadway and are not located at a corner of an intersection and will allow for visibility under the canopies. The variance would not cause an adverse effect on the environment because the proposed canopies will be a minor modification to the existing developed lot. Moreover, they are consistent with the existing canopies in the area, and the character of the neighborhood has already been established by these canopies. And lastly, we maintain that the difficulty was not self-created by the applicant because the canopies and the locations are dictated by the location of the existing drive-through lane. So with that, if you don't have any further questions, I thank you for your time.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone in the audience like to be heard? No? Could I have a motion to close the application, please?
So moved.
Motion has been made to close the application. It's been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're quite welcome. Have a nice evening.
That's part of it.
Can we have a board out into Hicksville, check it out? Absolutely.
The next case on the agenda is case number 19087, Douglas Butera, 5 Galehurst Lane, St. James. The location of the property is the north side of Galehurst Lane, 316 feet east of Hobson Avenue. The property is zoned R10. The applicant is requesting variances to reduce the minimum front yard setback from 25 feet to 17 feet for a proposed 231 square foot front covered porch, to reduce the total side yards from 28 feet to 27 feet, to increase the maximum gross floor area of the lot from 30% to 46% for a proposed 1,627 square foot second floor addition.
Good evening.
Good evening. Douglas Butera, 5 Gilhurst Lane, St. James, New York, 11780. As stated, the property was now added to the gross square footage. We're now at 34%, not 46. Just,
Okay.
I think that
They
will be in the
added it.
packet, correct?
Is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
So it's 34,
Yes.
Yes.
not,
If you look in his file, you'll find that there is a revised denial letter indicating the corrected FAR, along with a updated survey that reflects the addition of approximately 3,000 square feet of property from the adjacent neighbor.
everything else stays the same.
Yes, sir.
It's just the FAR.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I was able to obtain the deed properly and submit it so that it could be recalculated
Okay, very
into
good.
the R10.
Does anyone on the board have any questions on this?
No, thank you.
Any questions?
No, I don't have any comments.
We do have a new comment, Mr. Chairman. In coordination with the building department, we have determined that the current proposal to enlarge the existing single-family dwelling requires approval from the Department of Health. This information is needed in order to complete our environmental review. We have notified the applicant of their need to contact the health department, so no decision will be made tonight.
So you have to get health department approval.
Okay, is that, I just obviously contact them myself?
We
and-
sent you a
okay.
letter. You might not have
Oh,
received
okay.
it yet, and it outlines
All right.
exactly what you need to do.
All right, I appreciate it.
Yeah, so we'll have no action on your case tonight.
Okay.
We'll wait for the health department approval first.
And then just as formality, do I stand again in front of the board, or do I just talk to the health
Nope,
department?
just send it in,
Okay,
and then they'll complete the CEQA.
back to planning.
So you can send it directly to our department. It outlines it
okay.
in the letter.
All right.
We
All right.
emailed it and
Sorry.
mailed it, so it's okay.
All right, perfect.
Okay.
All right.
Is there anyone in the audience like to be heard on this application? Nope. Can I have a motion to close the application, please?
So moved.
Motion has been made to close the application. It's been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
No? It's a lot of land they have.
The next case on the agenda is case number 19088, Cube Smart R.A. Smithtown LLC, 514 Middle Country Road, St. James. The location of the property is the south side of Jericho Turnpike, Middle Country Road, 642 feet west of Southern Boulevard. The property is owned LI. The applicant is requesting variances to increase the maximum height of a wall sign from 15 feet to 22 feet for a proposed 25-square-foot illuminated wall sign. To increase the number of wall signs from a maximum of 1 to 2 signs for 2 29-square-foot illuminated wall signs, to permit a wall sign not to face a public street.
Good evening.
Good evening, Chairman, members of the board. Kevin Ream, R-E-I-M as in Mary, 275 Broad Hollow Road in Melville. Here on behalf of the property owner, R.A. Smithtown LLC. This project has been before you before for a couple of variances, currently under construction right down the road, as I'm sure you have seen. We're here just to get signs approved, 2 of them. We have worked in conjunction with the planning department for the location of these signs. The original proposal actually had the signs a lot higher on the north and west elevation, actually on top of the second windows, if you could see. But it had been recommended by planning to lower those to the middle of the building. So the owner had no problem complying with those. They're not fairly large signs. You know, there's really not much room between the 2 panes of windows, as you can tell, so they are probably a lot smaller than what you see here on Middle Country Road. And obviously just fits with the character of the building, which is why we're seeking the height variances. And we did actually have a 3rd proposed wall sign, but in discussions with planning, they weren't going to agree with it, so we ended up nixing it, which is, you know, why we're back down just to 2 wall signs here. And that's really about it.
The signs that are illuminated, do they stay on all night?
No, they will be turned off.
They're on a timer,
Usually,
they?
probably, yeah, they are on a timer, so they will be turned off usually around 11, 12 o'clock.
All right, thank you.
No problem.
Anyone on the board have any questions on this application?
No, thank you.
No, thank you.
Planning.
No, thank you.
Well, thank you.
Is there anyone in the audience like to be heard of this application? Can I have a motion to close the application, please?
So moved.
Motion has been made to close the application. It's been seconded. All in favor? Aye. Motion carried.
Have a good night. Thank you.
Good night. And that concludes the first part. And that concludes the first part of a hearing for tonight. The first case tonight was case 19092, Jason Driggs.
Question before we do this. All of mine say pending on Secret?
Yeah, it's incorrect.
I thought I saw, so we have Secret on all of these except for the
Chick-fil-A.
Chick-fil-A.
No, you have a secret.
Oh, no, the,
You don't have a secret on 19094 Arnold.
But
That
that's
one's
adjourned.
adjourned, right? And Butera, 19087.
got it.
You didn't get the okay that if the
No action.
Okay.
And there was one other one?
If you
Okay,
look
so
on
we
the
have-
cover page, it tells you all of the cases that
That's what I'm gonna do. Perfect.
has secret.
I'll
Okay.
let you know.
All right, so case 19092, Jason Driggs. I'll make a motion to approve as presented.
Motion has been made to approve as presented. It's been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carried 4-0. Next case is case 19093, James and Melissa Borgia.
Case 19093, I'll make a motion to approve as presented.
Motion has been made to approve as presented. It's been seconded. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Motion carried 4-0. Next case is case 19094, Russell Arnold. That has been adjourned to April 23rd. The next case is case 19095, Chick-fil-A.
Case 19095, you guys want to have a little discussion on this one? I know we approved a much smaller
Smaller one.
canopy in Comac, and because my daughter is addicted to Chick-fil-A. I go to that one quite often, so I just happened to be there yesterday. You really can't see the canopy at all. I don't know that it warrants us approving one that would be more than 2 times the size. One of our concerns with that one, I believe, was the fact that the location of the canopy was considerably lower than the adjacent road. This one is either at the same height or a little bit higher than 111 and 347. So I don't know how that impacts this. I mean, maybe you guys.
After the explanation, you know, how they stack the cars, you know, it seems that they do need the 55 feet, you know, and the 1,400 square foot canopy is needed.
Well, one of the other things that we did, I seem to recall with our previous approval, was limit the way the pillars were even finished so that it made it less visible from the street.
Yeah, so everybody has a copy of the previously approved application in their packet, and it also contains a copy of the color rendering of what the canopies or canopy was supposed to look like. And bottom line was that we wanted the canopy, the finish of the canopy, to match the materials and finishes that were used on the building itself. So the legs of the canopy were wrapped with some kind of a brick or some kind of a stone to match the building. I think the colors of the Chick-fil-A's is like red and black. So the framework of the canopy was black with the red finishes on the legs. The roof was not to be opened at that location so that when people were driving by, they couldn't see the top of the roof because it was an open concept. We asked them to keep the top of the roof covered. And I believe that the height of that canopy was a maximum of 10 feet, but I'd have to go back and review the minutes.
I can say they were asking for 3,000 square feet back
Yeah,
then.
it was huge.
It was huge. Yeah.
So if we condition it similarly so that it's not as impacting, I think I'd be okay with the larger canopy.
I mean, I know this location. I don't get the impression it would necessarily be an eyesore. I was concerned with color because if you're going to put a bright yellow or a bright red, it's going to be a distraction to people. But it should be as low as it can be so it's not a distraction to drivers going by. I get the piece to want to protect them because I've been through there. I've ordered through the window, and the employees are completely exposed to the weather. And it's year-round.
Yeah.
So something to protect them is desirable, but not necessarily at the burden of the neighborhood. But a black canopy that's not too high probably isn't going to change the fundamental nature of the area. There's 2 gas stations right there, and then you've got the whole commercial shopping center right next door or retail complex right next door.
Does the current application have the same type of finishes as the building?
It appears that it's similar to what was previously approved in Comac, minus the brickwork.
It looks like.
No, this is our old one. This is the previous
Let
approval.
me just pull it up. Look. So it's showing black columns or black legs with a black facade across the top of it. So it's similar to what was previously proposed and approved in Comac, minus the architectural features that we recommended the board condition on it.
Okay.
If you look at the plan, if you look at the color rendering of the one that's in your packet, you can see that the way that the canopy and the support legs were designed was so that the legs would match the facade of the building and that the trim on the canopy was all black.
So,
Black.
so I personally would be okay if we granted a similar style I don't know how you guys are.
Yeah, at the 1,400, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so
I'm in agreement.
is it safe to say that if we worded it that way, or would you rather go back and have them submit something? Or if we worded it that the fit and finishes of this canopy,
To match.
To match.
Previously approved case, case number 18595.
yes.
I'm sorry, say the number again, 185?
18595?
Thank you.
Does that work for everyone?
Yeah. I was just,
I don't think that's a bad idea. I'm looking at the locations they discussed. I would certainly say the location we have is probably less busy than Levittown, East Meadow, Hicksville. They're probably more highly developed. But we're not so different from the Port Jeff location, which isn't far from here. I don't have a problem with the canopy either if it's not too high, and it's going to be consistent with the drawings we've seen.
Yeah.
I guess Chick-fil-A has standard colors, so the building in Comac is the same as the...
It's red brick and.
Okay.
Yeah,
So we're talking apples to apples.
pretty much.
Okay, all right.
I just want everybody to know. in
Hold on,
reading-
Patrick's still on the record.
Is he off?
No.
I just want everybody to know that when I was reading the case into the record, I think there's something missing in the call of the meeting. It says to reduce the front yard setback from 347, 50 feet to 43 feet, but it doesn't say for a proposed canopy. I can just as easily insert it into the decision in the letter when it's done, if
So-
that's what you want to do.
Well, are we on the record or off the record?
We're on the record.
Okay, so we should be on the record. I think 50 to 43 on Route 47, correct?
Is for the proposed roof over to
On the
replace
building.
the existing one on the building.
Correct.
Right. And it projects 2 feet more
2 feet
2
more.
feet.
than the
He
previous?
said that on the record.
Yes.
And I believe the call of the meeting is correct, it's just missing some verbiage.
It is, yeah.
So they're still asking for the correct variance.
Okay.
Okay. So that's cleared up. All right, so I'll make a motion, case 19095.
It's unlisted neg deck. Do you have to do that first?
Yes.
Okay, sorry.
Don't be. Secra.
Motion has been made to approve the CEQA. It's been seconded. All in favor? Aye. CEQA has been adopted. Now on the merits.
Thank you, Sabrina.
You're welcome.
On the merits, case 19095, Chick-fil-A Inc. I'll make a motion to approve the requested variances with the condition that the canopy and columns match the architecture of the existing Chick-fil-A on the site, similar to the approval for case 18595.
Motion has been made to approve with conditions. It's been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried 4-0. Next case on the agenda was case 19061, Mary Sue Namus. That has been adjourned to April 23rd. Next case is case 19087, Douglas Butera, no action. Next case is case 19088, CubeSmart /RA Smithtown LLC.
Case 19088, CubeSmart. I'll make a motion to approve as presented.
Motion has been made to approve as presented. It's been seconded. All in favor? Motion carried 4-0. Next case on the back is case 1-18245, 779A Middle Country Road LLC. They're asking to withdraw their one-year extension. No problem.
Do we do anything with that?
Say okay.
Okay.
Okay. Withdrawn. Next case is case 18777, Wisconsin Gas Haven, Inc. They're requesting a 6-month extension. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Motion carried, 4-0 for the extension.
There's two cases on the back that are not highlighted that have type 2s. Case number 18927, Glenn Tannenbaum, and case number 19022, Mary Perchacki. We're just missing these individual pages for it, but it's marked, it's on the back. It's not highlighted.
So case 19022,
18927 and 19022.
18,
Yes,
Okay, Glenn Tanham, that was the pool.
that was the pool.
Okay.
So they did receive their DEC permit. They are putting a 7-foot deep pool into a depth of groundwater of only 5 feet, so we were concerned with dewatering activities, but other than that, we've issued a type 2.
No conditions, right?
No conditions.
okay, case 18927, Glenn Tannenbaum. I'll make a motion to approve as presented.
Second. Motion has been made to approve as presented. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I think that was back in May.
I don't, Paul
yeah,
can't vote.
sorry, yes.
So,
That's 3-0.
3-0.
And the other one was 19022?
Yeah, Perchacki.
And we were just waiting on the LWRP.
On the LWRP, yes.
Were there any conditions?
There are conditions in the LWRP. I
Yes,
do not
I got
have it with me.
I got
You got it?
Okay.
All right.
it. Well, I have the ones that we brought up at the meeting because I know there were some encroachments.
Those are our
Actually,
comments.
Give me
Yeah,
one
there-
sec.
there
Give me
were-
one give me 1 sec.
Well, in the interim, yeah, there were several encroachments. There was a fence, 2 fence
Oh,
encroachments.
she's so good.
And we also, they're in the river corridor, so we recommend that they either need a
On that
DEC
page and the following
permit or a letter of non-jurisdiction.
Recommendations.
And the following page.
Correct. We don't know if they have to, but they have to contact E DEC.
I don't
So
think we
yours
I was going to say, I think
were-
this was presented before I got
Yeah,
here,
it was.
but I saw in the paperwork that we were waiting for DEC permits.
So you said
I got it.
they have to contact DEC.
They
Wait,
either
what's
have
that
to
one?
contact DEC to see if they need a permit or receive a letter of non-jurisdiction
Right.
for the proposed work. Letter of non-jurisdiction. And there were several encroachments.
Encroachments.
Okay, so I'll read on the coastal consistency. Yeah.
Okay. So the next case on the agenda is case 19022, Mary Pacheco.
Case 19022, that was a type 2, correct? So we don't need secret. There's a coastal consistency determination with some recommendations, so I'll read those into the record. The coastal consistency determination is contingent upon the applicant obtaining the height, lot area, and gross floor area variances from the Board of Zoning Appeals. 2, this consistency determination is based upon the revised plans received by the Planning Department on February 13th, 2024. Prior to the issuance of a building permit, the applicant shall submit samples of the exterior building materials to the Planning Department for approval. The exterior finishes of the structures shall minimize contrast with overall natural visual character of the local waterfront area. Colors shall be earth tones, examples brown, tan, and olive, and have low chromas and low values. 4, the detached garage shall be screened from adjacent properties. All existing trees along the east property line and to the north of the proposed garage shall be preserved in accordance with plans received by the Planning Department on February 13th, 2024. 5, all additional stormwater generated by the detached garage, breezeway, and new impervious surfaces shall be retained on site. Prior to the issuance of a building permit, the applicant shall submit a drainage plan subject to approval by the town engineer. The applicant is encouraged to use green infrastructure to manage stormwater, examples permeable pavement, rain gardens, etc. Now, on the merits, I'll make a motion to approve. I'm going to go through them one at a time. Request variance to reduce minimum side yard setback from 24 to 5 feet, be approved. Reduce total side yard setback from 60 feet to 29 feet, be approved. increase maximum height from 15 feet to 17 feet only be approved. To permit environmentally sensitive lands to be altered, steep slopes greater than 15% be approved. To permit construction within 10 feet of any slopes greater than 25% for a 528 square foot detached garage with open breezeway. To be approved with conditions, and the conditions are that all encroachments onto adjacent parcels are brought back onto this applicant's property. NDC, ND's subject to DEC approval.
Whether they need a permit or a letter of non-jurisdiction.
Yes. Whether they need a permit or a letter of non-jurisdiction.
Okay. Bill seconded. Second, yeah. Okay, motion has been made to approve with conditions. It's been seconded. All in favor? Aye. Motion carried 3-0.
And I'll abstain, obviously, since it began before I arrived.
Yeah. And the next case is case 18900, Matan Alantis.
That's just request to reopen?
Request to
It's a request to rehear the case.
Okay.
And there is a letter in everybody's packet from the applicant explaining why they're requesting to have the case reheard.
He's looking for 100 feet?
He's requesting 100 feet, but it was explained to him that the likelihood of that being approved or granted is not very high.
Mhm. One of his things was about putting the septic system. He said 60 feet is not large enough area to put the septic system?
An AI system?
Honestly, don't know the specs on that.
I don't know.
Well, I guess he has brought up some things that may
Yeah.
change our decision, so maybe we should just hear him out.
All right.
How does everybody vote?
I'm okay hearing it.
All right, on case 18900, Matan Alantis, they're requesting to reopen the case. We'll do a roll call. Tony?
Aye.
Bill?
Yes.
Aye.
You were here for that one?
No, I'm, to rehear it, you're saying we're going to rehear the case?
Yeah.
Will I be able to participate in the
Yeah.
rehearing? I don't see
Yes.
why not. So I'm saying, yes, I'm game for having them, represent their case.
Okay, but, okay. And I'm a yay. So 3-0 to reopen. We'll give them a date of May 7th.
5/7.
There is one last item on the back of the agenda. Case number 19085, Hanover Bank. The K, 19085.
Got it.
That case was heard at the February 26th meeting. It was 27th.
The Hanover Bank, right?
Hanover Bank. It was a request for a wall sign to increase the height of a wall sign from 15 feet to 73 feet at 410 Motor Parkway. During the course of the applicant's presentation, it occurred to me that the sign was proposed to be installed on a parapet wall of the building. And I mentioned on the record that I believe because of that, there is a section in the code that states that two things. Number one, a sign cannot be placed above another sign. And two, a sign cannot project above the roof or the height, the maximum height of the wall that it is attached to. And being that it was proposed to be on a parapet, and I didn't assume that a parapet was part of a structure, that it was above the height of the roof line of the building, and it would need a new variance. I did speak with the building director the following day. He made the determination that a parapet wall is in fact part of a building, a structure, and that no additional variance was needed. So the applicant had reached out asking if the board would consider closing the hearing since no further information would be introduced to the board and that no additional variance needs to be advertised or heard by the board. Would the board consider closing the application in lieu of having another public hearing on March 26th and make a determination on the case?
We can do that.
I am told you can do that.
So I'll make a motion to close.
Yeah.
Case 19085, Hanover Bank, I'll make a motion to close the hearing.
Motion has been made to close the hearing. All in favor? Aye. Motion carried 4-0. Now on the merits.
On the merits, you guys want to have a little discussion on this? I know there was some concern about the height. Personally, I didn't have a problem with it only because it is in a kind of a unique part of town. Being on Motor Parkway on the expressway, there are other structures that have higher signs there, albeit on much taller buildings. However, I believe the visibility on that corner would warrant a higher sign. There was also some concern about the proliferation of signs on these upper floors of the buildings, given that these are typically multi-tenanted buildings. Personally, I think if we do approve something like this, that we should condition it that if you're going to brand a building, it's for one tenant, that you can't have 5 or 6 different signs on top of the building. And if you're going to brand a building similar to you see all over the place, brand it with one tenant. And I don't know if that warrants a covenant or a covenant restriction, or if it just becomes a condition of approval. I guess that will be for our town attorney to tell us the best way to accomplish that.
Tony, just to clarify something, when you say there are buildings in the area with higher signs, do you mean higher than the 73 feet or
Yeah.
higher than the code permits?
Well, certainly higher than the code permits, but higher than the 73
Than the
feet.
73 feet?
Yeah.
How much taller are those buildings?
Those are somewhere in the 80 to 90 foot
The
range.
signs are, the buildings are well over 100 feet.
And how large is this building again?
Well, the proposed sign is on the parapet, and it's proposed at 73 feet. So I'm assuming that the roof line would be below that. Let's just say the roof line is at 65 feet,
I was going to guess.
and the
okay.
top of the parapet is 75 feet? Something like that?
Something like that.
Yeah.
But it is, are you familiar with the location of this one, Paul?
Yes, I can't
It's
think
kind of
of
on the bend when you come down Motor Parkway, heading toward, westbound by the expressway.
Okay.
And it's set back on, kind of on the corner of,
Right off the corner of Old Willets and Motor Parkway. On Motor Parkway, just past the corner of Old Willets, on the north side.
yeah.
Okay.
I also remember him stating, because I think we asked him, could he drop the sign? But the architect said the area underneath the parapet was only
2 feet.
2.5 feet, I think,
The lettering would have to be a little bit smaller.
a lot smaller.
I don't know how big the lettering is on
It was
this
not, it
proposed
wouldn't, it
sign.
was not significantly smaller. It was definitely close.
I don't know if it would fit there.
Yeah, he was concerned. I mean, as the architect, he kind of had pride of his design and was taken back when I suggested that we put it on that part of the building.
on the wall. So,
I'm not against it. I mean, I wouldn't like to see them in different parts of the town. I think in that corridor, it may actually not be the worst thing to give them the visibility on the expressway.
so I just want to understand what you said earlier about limiting future signage. Currently, the building is approved to have 4 wall signs above the first floor, between the first and second floor, for the 4 tenants on the main floor. And this is now a proposed sign to go up at the top of the building. So when you say limit the amount of signs, are we talking about just at the top of the building, or are we talking about between every floor?
Correct, no. Well, so obviously there's no application for that right now. What I'm talking about is essentially branding a building where you're putting a major tenant or a sign at the top. It could be the tenant that occupies the whole building or 2 offices, doesn't matter. But if you're going to brand the building, I wouldn't like to see, personally, for any more than one, you know, that it's not for putting the entire tenant mix on that parapet wall or at the top of the building. It's only for the building being branded with a tenant.
So what you're saying, it will be referred to as the Hanover Bank building?
Yeah, exactly, which is what you usually see. You don't, I mean, obviously you go into Queens and you'll see buildings with 10 tenants on the top of the building, but I don't know that that's where we should be going.
That's going to be interesting for the landlord then, because the landlord has to understand he can't suddenly rent out half of the building and then tell that tenant, we're putting a sign on top, because he won't be able to do that then. And I'm not advocating
Yeah,
for
no,
it.
you're right.
I agree with you that branding the building with one name is okay, and having it become a patchwork quilt of multiple different looking signs and different names is not acceptable.
Right, right. So,
And in that location, a higher sign probably is okay for that site.
personally, I think so. I mean, obviously, we're all
Yeah.
one vote.
The condition would just have to be specific as to that.
So you think a
sign.
condition is enough, not a covenant restriction
Well,
that,
if the covenant restriction gets into, that's something only the owner could file against his own
Sorry, can
property.
you
Right.
speak up a little?
sorry. We were discussing whether a covenant restriction was required or a condition, and Martin had, go ahead.
I had said that a covenant restriction would have to be filed by the property owner, and I don't believe the property owner is the applicant on the, it's Hanover Bank.
I was wondering.
Yeah.
So I think that would be problematic, so I think the condition should be specific as to the sign.
And would accomplish the same thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I just want to make sure I'm clear, so that I understand this for any future applications that come in for this particular site. The condition would be that no further signage would be placed in the area where the proposed sign is going. So in other words,
On the
there would be
parapet
no other signage anywhere on the building on the parapet wall.
Correct. But to your point, if there is existing signage, we're not saying you can't have that, but that signage needs to be more in keeping with what our previous approvals would have been. So that one is the branding of the building, and one would be, or 2 would be, or 3 would be other tenants just looking to have their exposure at 15, 18, 19, 20 feet, whatever those are.
Well, I guess in a way, that's kind of what I was asking before. It's a 4-story building. So there's 4 levels of tenants, multiple tenants, and there would be 4 levels of signage for each tenant that could possibly occupy the building. So as I said earlier, there's 4 tenants on the main floor, and there are 4 wall signs identifying those tenants across the facade of the building.
Correct. All at the
So-
same height.
All at the same height. So
Yeah.
now if somebody comes in and they're occupying space somewhere in the building, and they want to put a sign up on the next level of the building, which would now take them up to 36 or 40 feet.
I'm not okay with that.
So would your condition then state that with this approval, that would be all of the wall signage that the building should be allowed to have?
That's tough.
I thought it was
It's
all
tough for
glass.
me to, it's tough for me to figure out how we would word that. The intent, and maybe that's what we try to figure out, the intent would be that we routinely grant signs for multi-tenanted buildings.
Right.
They are typically at the first floor level, or the same height, which is typical for our approvals. This is not that. This would be a branding of the building and limited to one sign or one tenant that is above the other signs.
To place this in perspective, if we did not have this application, and there is a right to the 4 first-floor tenants to put signs up, how many more signs could go
That's my question. My question is,
without this roof sign,
if,
though?
forget about whether or not you approve this.
Right.
It's a 4-story building.
Right.
So there's 4 stories that potentially could have signage on it.
Potentially, yes. However, I wouldn't approve that. And every one would be an application.
Any building then could have 90 signs on
Right,
Yeah.
right.
it, you know?
That's the question. I
Not
mean,
No, that's not, and every one of those signs would be a separate application to this board. So if this board sees an application for that building 6 months from now, for Joe's Coffee House, it just took the 2nd floor,
Right.
and we look back and say, oh, there's a condition of approval on a previous application that says, no, there's only one sign.
okay.
Under the code, is there no right for a tenant that moves in there right now to put a sign up? They have to come to us?
So the code states that you cannot have a sign above a sign. So if you have 4 signs across the facade of the building above the first floor, somebody comes in and wants to put a sign on the facade above the 2nd floor of the building, that's a sign on top of a sign.
Right.
If somebody wants to do it on the 3rd floor, that would again be a sign on top of a sign.
So right now, we have 4 signs on the first floor.
Correct.
So nobody
There-
can put anything on the 2nd, 3rd, or 4th floor
Correct.
without coming to us. And
Correct. Ever.
we could brand this building, give them that parapet sign. We would not affect the rights of the people below, and the other floors couldn't put a sign up anyway because they couldn't put a sign on top of a sign to begin with.
Unless they come to this board
Right,
and ask for
without coming
relief.
to us. And nothing can be done as a matter of right.
But they can put up a ground sign, and they do have that ability. They are permitted 32 square feet by code. Many sites within the industrial park have signs greater than 32 square feet. The board has previously granted variances for ground signs greater than 32 square feet. So there is other opportunity to identify the tenants of the building.
Well, I'm okay with putting this one sign on top then.
So do you want me to make we'll try to cobble together a motion?
Yeah. Here we
Martin-
go.
Martin can do it.
Case number 19085, Hanover Bank.
Case 19085 Hanover Bank. I'll make a motion to approve as presented with the condition that the sign be the only sign mounted on the parapet, and any subsequent applications for additional signs would not be entertained.
Well, they would have a right to bring an application.
So I guess the condition would be, with the condition that this is the only sign that gets mounted above the other signs of the building.
Well, let me ask you a question now. If we do that, does that mean they really can't come back ask? And we
They can
could-
always ask.
Right, I was going to say, they
But
could
that'll
always
be
come
there
back.
for us to say, oh, we had a condition on it.
Understood, okay, good,
Yeah.
good, because they could always come back and say, will you reconsider?
Yeah.
And we could all be gone, and there could be people here
Yes.
from downtown
And
Brooklyn
typically,
who'll
when
say,
we see
want
that, we
multiple
would
signs."
say, oh, there must have been a reason they put that condition, so
Right.
you look into it.
Okay, Because we've talked about how other communities have busier-looking buildings. If different people sat on this board, they might take a different view.
Yes. They just did,
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
much to the chagrin of Blaze.
Bill, you second it? Case 19085, Hanover Bank. Motion has been made to approve as presented with condition. It's been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried 4-0.